If something dies and sinks, how long will it remain so it can be covered, given ocean or underwater currents?
Okay, well, I don't think that that's really the question, because it doesn't matter if something can stay still. It's what else is going on in the ocean bottom. So if we're going to judge by what's happening in the world today, in terms of things in the ocean turning to fossils, then what's going on the ocean floor? And basically, there's a lot of activity. If you fall to the ocean floor, you're consumed. There's that much life down there that is just looking for food, crabs, other critters of all sorts, fish even. They will eat you off the bottom. Anyone that's got a fish tank knows you drop pellets and they drop to the bottom of the tank. The fish are there looking for it to eat anyway. So depending on what fish you've got, of course, in your tank. But that's the biggest problem. The things will be consumed long before they've had a chance to get covered up, let alone fossilized. The whole thing of movement by currents, etc., just means that it'll be moved to another spot, and that could be moved into a crevice or a crack or something that will be then covered up and slowly fossilized. But my experience, and Joe and others might like to comment on this, but my experience getting fossils that are from marine environments are that they're always in quite mass dumpings. You get lots of shells all jumbled up. They don't have any appearance of being slowly covered and fossilized. There's lots of them there. I know Joe's been to Tassie, and one of the quarries not far from us, there's literally millions. Most people would say billions if you ask them after a bit of time there digging away at the fossils, how many shell and other corals and other sea creatures do you think are in this particular area? And they would say billions. So the evidence is actually that they've been buried quickly, dramatically, catastrophically, whatever word you want to use, and fossilized from there, not slowly. I don't think that what the question's getting at, that it'll be moved around by currents and so on, is really hitting on what's going on down there. How do I go? 30 seconds to go. What do you want to add to that?
I'll throw something else in the mix, because you can sort of quantify with a time, because if you go up to the Burgess Shale up in Canada, you find there are very, very many soft-bodied organisms that are preserved there, and you can do tests. It was Richard Fortey who did some tests in a program where basically you get soft-shelled creatures, arthropody type things, and you kill them, and you see how long it takes for them to start going fuzzy around the edges, basically, because the fossils in the Burgess Shale show no evidence of any fuzzy edges whatsoever, and you find that these creatures start getting fuzzy edges in less than 24 hours. So in other words, you don't just need to bury them, you need to preserve them within 24 hours and avoid any kind of decay. And as Craig rightly pointed out, it's not just about being moved by water or transported by water. It's also the fact that you have to have a water that is thick enough in slurry or sediment to actually be able to bury those fossils, because the reality is you have to bury them and preserve them in less time than it takes for them to rot away. And you can do your own experiments. And we have fossil jellyfish just over there, right, in the museum, and jellyfish shrivel up within hours. So it has to be a quick process.
Yeah. I would add, not too long ago, just a couple of years ago, I think it was James Cameron, the one who was the photographer for the movie The Titanic, developed a new deep submersible for setting the record for the deepest submersion in the ocean, to go to the deepest points of the ocean. And on one of his trips down, I mean, he was hitting areas where his cameras were showing there was no life on the bottom. Well, on one of those places where there was absolutely no life, the ocean bottom wasn't covered with any dead animals. And then second, he released a chicken, and within minutes, it was gone. All of a sudden, that area so deep that there's no life was filled with life and just ate the chicken up. Interesting video if anybody wants to see. Yes, like Craig said, they're not going to stay on the bottom. They have to be buried quickly in a slurry, as Joe said, very rapidly.
Yeah. If you want a similar thing, sorry, go ahead, Craig.
I was just going to say, last year we got hold of an octopus fossil that's still got its suckers on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was buried very quickly.
Remarkable.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want a similar thing to what Glenn was saying, you can look up the Blue Planet, the BBC documentary. There's probably clips of it on YouTube. But you'll see in one of the Abyss ones, it's a David Attenborough narrated documentary. They found a whale death, which is basically where a whale dies, bloats, explodes, and then gets waterlogged, so it sinks to the bottom of the sea and covered in blubber and all that stuff. And then they visited it. I've got a feeling it was about 4 to 6 months later, something like that. It was less than a year, and it completely stripped down to its bones, and then the bones were being eaten up as well. So you've got to have it quick. It's got to be a quick process if you want to fossilize it, especially if you want to fossilize like 20 whales in one go, which is what you do find.